standing here next to our cup plants, and as you can see, a lot of them have already spent their blossoms. They were put in here for the bees. They've really done their job. The goldenrod is starting to bloom now, and so the beehives have been shut down for the winter so that the bees can make the honey that they are going to need in order to survive the season and be ready for next spring. But what I saw on the cup plant the other day that I'm really excited about is the American goldfinch. There was a male and two females that were fluttering around eating the seeds off of the flowers here, and I was so happy to see them because I haven't really seen them on the property. They are a new species that has arrived because we have created the ecosystem that is going to be friendly to their survival. This is, even though the weather's starting to cool off and everything, we are still really in a big time for harvesting from the garden. I'm standing next to this corn mound. The beans, the pole beans on this mound have gone like gangbusters, and if you look at the corn, you can see that our popcorn has come up there. This one you can see has been fully pollinated and it's ready. Take a look at all these beans, they're just everywhere. So the harvest that we are starting to have on a weekly basis that is available for donation is really starting to be a lot more generous. I think the season had a little bit of a slow start, but it has really kind of ramped up now that we're later in the season. Gardening takes patience, and sometimes, like I have discussed before, sometimes some things work, sometimes they don't. This is the reward for the work that you do when you cannot see results, is to come out and find that there is a richness of harvest that's available if only you come out and pick it. One of the things that takes a lot of perseverance is trying to keep up with the invasive weeds and stuff that are growing. Now in this area, this is where our elderberries are growing. We also have our gooseberries in here, and we've worked really hard to get this weeded, and then the gardeners were here yesterday and they laid down a whole bunch of mulch and cardboard to kind of keep everything under control. One of the science experiments that I am doing this season for next season is to, in permaculture style, encourage the gooseberries to grow up into the elderberry bush. Now the gooseberries, if you look at them, you can see they have these monstrous thorns on here. They are especially deadly when we are going to pick the gooseberries. The other thing that happens is that this is another bush where if it lays down on the ground, it will take root. With a bush like this that has a lot of very deadly thorns, we're really not encouraging it to spread out and go everywhere. We're trying to keep it contained within a smaller area so that when we do go into harvest, we are not putting our lives in danger. Now, in this particular instance, we didn't get too terribly many of the elderberries. I think the birds got most of them, and that is fine. But one of the things that we are doing is, instead of putting up a trellis for the gooseberries to keep their growth under control, what we're trying to do is we're trying to train the gooseberries to grow up inside of the elderberries, so that the elderberries actually are providing support for the gooseberry bushes. Now, in return, it is my hope that as the gooseberries grow up into the elderberry bush, the gooseberries will assist the elderberry bush in protecting some of the berries so that we actually will get to have a harvest. Sitting right there on the pod, just ready to fall out, but it looks like a little alien arm. I'm standing here next to one of our stands of goldenrod. You can see that the blossoms are starting to come out. The pollinators are on this. And when I stopped mowing my yard and I started allowing it to grow, one of the things that I noticed is that the pollinators are all over this in the fall. And there is another plant in the aster family that has like tons of tiny little flowers. They bloom late in the fall. They have a really super important job for the bees, because while we are not going to be getting any more honey from the beehives, the beekeeper has closed them up for the season to allow the bees to make food for the winter so that they will have enough to survive the season. They will feast and make their honey out of this goldenrod. And one of the reasons that we close up the beehives and don't do any more honey is because the pollen and nectar from the goldenrod makes the honey stink. And so we as humans would not want to eat this honey, but it makes perfectly good food for the bees in the fall. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is this was a box that somebody was going to mulch over in our garden. We use a lot of cardboard to do our mulched areas, and one of the things that we do not want to do is we do not want to put cardboard that is glossy or has a sheen on it. That is not something that would appropriately decompose and turn into dirt. Now that doesn't mean that it's a lost cause. This kind of cardboard, this is the cardboard we take to the recycling center. It is still recyclable. It's just not good for use in the garden.